After years of hard work to buy my dream house, one day, my sister Carly and her husband Luke showed up unannounced and said, "We're moving in." They had no permission and no shame. They thought everything was theirs, and this is just the beginning. I never thought buying a house could be such a headache, especially not for my family. It takes hard work and years of saving to end up getting the home of your dreams, only to turn it into a battleground over everything you never wanted to have to handle. Ah, well, I guess that's the price you pay when you're the only one in the family who's put together, that everyone suddenly decides you're their answer to all their problems. I was never really the type who thought, when I grow up, I'll have my very own big mansion. Mine, by the way, is a 3-bedroom house. It's not some vast mansion, just mine. For years and years, I lived paycheck to paycheck, worked late nights, and watched every single penny down to the last penny for the first time in my life, really owning something. A place that was mine, not shared with anyone. I was proud of it, not just the house, but the life I could build for myself. It wasn't even about money. It was about independence, having my own place away from all the constant drama that seemed to tag along with my family wherever they went. That was until my younger sister Carly and her husband Luke showed up on my doorstep with bags and the kind of smile that made my stomach turn. See, Carly and I never got along. She was the golden child who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. It was always Carly this and Carly that. At the same time, I was supposed to be the responsible one who didn't ask for much because Carly always needed more. Whether it was time, attention, or help, Carly got it all, and I was left to figure things out independently. So when she married Luke and had 3 kids, I wasn't surprised that they ended up living with my parents, freeloading while Carly lived her Instagram perfect life, posting photos of her blessed family. My mother cared for the kids, and Luke bounced between jobs that never seemed to last. They painted a picture of a happy, middle-class family with adorable kids and a picture-perfect marriage. But the reality was a different ballgame behind the masks of filters. I guess Luke was a nice guy, but he never had an ounce of ambition. He was one of those people who floated through life, always in a job longer to memorize the cubicles. Carly had all the ambition in the world, but had yet to deliver. She told me that she always wanted to start a business or return to school, but that never happened. Instead, she was okay with letting my parents raise her family while she posted things online about her blessings. But I kept away from all of that. Sure, I got home for the holidays, smiled and nodded at small talk, but that's where it stopped. I didn't get involved. I built my life, ensuring I never depended on anyone like Carly. That was until the day Carly decided her life should affect me. They just came to my place one typical Tuesday afternoon, without any call or text saying they were coming. I opened my door to find Carly with her baby on her hip, and Luke standing behind her, looking as uncomfortable as ever. They'd come in without warning. No pleasantries were made. They just said it. "We need to move in with you," Carly said, as if it was the most reasonable request in the world. I blinked at her, my brain stumbling over what she had just said. "Move in with me? Why?" She sighed dramatically as though I knew the answer. "Mom and Dad's place is too cramped. The kids need more space, and Luke just lost his job again. Your house is perfect. We can stay in one of the bedrooms and it'll be just until we find our own place." I couldn't believe what I was being told. They had already planned this out without asking me. A rush of anger shot up through me, but I tried to keep calm. "Carly, I cannot just let you move in. This is my home. I purchased it. I need my own space." Carly's expression stiffened, growing cold as she continued. "You don't need all this space. You're single. You don't have kids. You barely fill one room. We have 3 children. We need this more than you do." My heart thumped inside my chest. How could my sister even think this was acceptable? Just because I hadn't had a chance to start a family and hadn't had a husband yet somehow made me an obligated person for her to move in with? "I'm sorry," I said more definitively now. "But no, you are not moving in." She narrowed her eyes to me. "You're selfish." The man, Luke, was too quiet until he finally came forth. "Maybe we could discuss rent. We'd pay something, of course. It's just until we get back on our feet." But I wasn't having it. I knew Carly, and I knew that once they moved in, they'd never leave. I'd end up paying for everything, and they'd make excuses for not contributing. This wasn't about rent. It was about control. "No," I repeated. "You're not moving in. You'll have to figure something else out." Carson's face twisted into a sneer of anger. Fine. I hope you're happy being all alone in your big house. With that, she stormed out, Luke following behind her, mumbling an apology as he went. I watched them leave, this knot of guilt and anger twisting in my chest. But I wasn't giving in. I'd worked too hard to let them take this away from me. And then suddenly, everything was quiet. Carly hardly spoke to me, and I figured she'd forgotten all about the whole house thing. Oh, stupid me. 2 weeks went by, and Mom called me up. Honey, we need to talk about Carly, she began. And of course, I knew a guilt trip was in the offing. What about her? I asked, trying to sound suitably nonchalant. Well, you know they're struggling right now. The kids need more room, and your house sits there with all that extra space. Would it really hurt you to let them come and stay for a little while? I clutched the phone to my ear, feeling the frustration I experience whenever Mom calls. Mom, I already said no to Carly. I bought this house for myself. It's not my problem to fix their lives. And then there was silence at the other end of the line, followed by a deep sigh. You wouldn't understand, not being a parent yourself. Family looks out for the family. You've always been so independent, but it's your turn now. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Years I had spent being the good one, the responsible one who was never dependent on anyone. Now that somehow made me wrong? No, Mom, I said firmly. I'm not doing this. Carly and Luke need to figure out their own situation. She was trying to continue arguing, but at this point, I didn't care. I hung up, still bawling inside. How could it be that way? My family, the people I had grown up with, lived with, and loved, were now my attackers for not giving up my home to let my freeloading sister take over. Then came the passive-aggressive Facebook posts. Carly began posting ambiguous statements like, "Some people just don't know what it means to be a family," and "Funny how those who have the most give the least." I knew they were about me, but I didn't say anything. I let her vent. I wouldn't let her guilt trip me into feeling wrong for saying no. But things took a darkish turn a few weeks later. One Friday evening, I returned home from work. When I pulled into the driveway, something seemed off. The front door was slightly open. My heart raced as I parked the car and hastened up the steps. Inside, there was chaos. Boxes, bags, and children's toys were all over the living room. Carly was unpacking. The kids ran wild throughout the house, and Luke was hauling more boxes from the car. He wouldn't meet my gaze. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted, trying to control my voice from shaking. Carly turned toward me. She did nothing but ignore the fact that I was standing there. "We're moving in. Mom and Dad said it was fine. You'll get used to it." I stood there stunned. How did they get in? I had never given them a key. I suddenly realized that my parents must have had a spare set. They'd just given it to Carly without asking me. "You can't just move into my house," I shouted. "This is my home." Carly shrugged like I was being unreasonable. "Just for now. You'll be fine." I couldn't believe it. They had just decided to take over my house, and everything hinged on my decisions and opinions. My rage overflowed. "Get out. Now." Carly finally stopped what she was doing and stopped to face me. "No, we're not leaving. It's better for the kids and you have plenty of space. We're staying." I was shaking with rage. I had my cell phone in my hand and dialed the police. Her face went blank when she realized what was going on. "You're not serious," she said, panic flashing in her eyes. But I was. Dead serious. They called the cops within minutes of it happening. Carly had to cry big. I didn't care about being cast out on the street with the kids, but it was unnecessary. I had the deed to the house and the law was behind me. They took their boxes and went. That look on Carly's face as she was forced to leave was priceless. I changed my locks a year later and stopped communicating with my family. Of course, my parents tried to guilt me, but I was done. I had been standing my ground and finally felt free for the first time in years. But the peace didn't last long. When she was a few months along, Carly's perfect life fell apart. She discovered that Luke had been cheating on her for months, and when he realized she had found out, he was out of there. Of course, she was devastated, but all I could sympathize with was so far because she had made her bed and now had to lie in it. The struggle of seeing Luke away was really, really hard for Carly, because she could not afford to stay there with my parents forever. For the first time in her life, she knew she had to face the harsh reality of life without a support system. She was reaching out to me for help, but I held firm. I would not let her use me as a safety net again. It's been almost a year since this started, and things have cooled down. Carly's still living with my parents, scraping on whatever work she can get. My relationship with my family is strained, but I learned that sometimes you must put yourself first, even if it means losing people. My house, my haven, remains, and I will never let anyone take that away from me again. News. When life seemed more bizarre, my cell phone rang one Friday evening as I was getting ready for an evening with a glass of wine and my favorite show. I picked up the call and checked who it was to reach. It was a familiar voice through the line. "It's Carly. Can I talk to you?" She cut into my anxious, curious churning. "Talk about what?" It's the kids. What about them? I have to ask for your help. Luke's lawyer has summoned me to appear in court," she said in a voice so low that I barely heard her. "He said he was going to take the kids away from me." I felt a tide of conflicting emotions. One half of me wanted to tell her to figure it out for herself, while another half, a part of me that could still recall the sister I once knew, pulled at my sympathy. "Fine," I said slowly. "Let's get together and talk it over." We agreed to meet at a downtown cafe. As I drove over, the weight of the situation was hanging over my head. I could never believe that I was essentially being positioned to help Carly. The sister who'd taken advantage of me all these years wanted my help. She was there when I arrived, her eyes puffy and red with tears. She looked small and defeated, and for a fleeting instant, I felt that old instinct to protect. "I don't know what to do," she said as soon as I sat down. "Luke is using this against me and I can't lose my kids." "Have you applied for a job?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. "You have to prove that you can provide for them." "I'm trying." She grew louder. "I don't get a chance at work because I'm home watching the kids. Mom and Dad can take so much on themselves and put their retirement savings into daycare." "Carly, you need to make your life a priority. You have let it slip through your fingers for far too long," I said, frustration almost boiling over. "You have to prove you are willing to fight for them." I know, she sighed, wiping her tears. "But I need your help. Can you write a character reference for me? It shows that I am a good mother and care for my kids." I hesitated. Writing a character reference for her almost enabled them to continue on a dependency path. Yet another part of me reminded me that the kids didn't deserve to suffer because of her choices. "Okay," I finally said, "but only if you promise to start looking for work. No more excuses. You need to take this seriously." She nodded energetically, relief flooding her face. "I promise, I'll do whatever it takes." For weeks afterward, I watched as Carly changed. She applied for jobs, took online courses, and volunteered at a local community center. I hardly believed that this was the same person who always used to rely on my parents and even her husband to take care of her. I could see the strength in those eyes, and at last, for the first time, I felt a little hope for her. But things only got worse when my parents called me one evening. "Carly is really struggling, honey," said my mom, worried. "She feels overwhelmed with all that she faces. Come over here to talk to her, would you?" That feeling in the pit of my stomach. I knew this would be one of those guilt trips if I went over there. But that part of me wanted to help, so I decided to go. The first thing I saw when I stepped in was Carly slumped on the couch amidst paper and a laptop. She had that stressed look. Her hair was in a bun, and her eyes reddened because she hadn't slept much. "Hey," I said softly. "You okay?" "I'm fine," she said in a hoarse voice. "I just need to sort everything out." I sat beside her. "Mom says you are losing it. What's going on?" I gazed at her while she contorted her face with stress. "I'm doing the best I can. It's just hard to balance everything. The kids need me, and I must also find a job. I literally can't do it all." "Carly, you need to snap out of this pressure thing," I said while trying to sound as sane as I was. "You can't do everything at once. You have to focus on one thing at a time. I know that, but it's not that easy," she yelled, sobbing, tears streaming down her cheeks. "What if I lose the kids? What if I can't find a job? I can't go back to living with Mom and Dad. I can't." I stretched over and rested my hand on hers. She shuddered beneath my touch. "Listen, you're not going to lose the kids. You're fighting for them and doing what you need to do. Just keep going. I'm here for you." She nodded slowly, rubbing her tears away. "I feel so alone in this." "You're not alone," I reminded her. You have me. We'll figure this out together. The court case. Months became weeks, and Carly's situation gradually steadied. She started a part-time job at the local grocery store, though it wasn't the job she used to picture herself in. It was something. For the first time since all this started, she was finally showing me, and most importantly, to herself, that she had what it took for her to stand upright by herself. However, she still had Luke's battle for custody looming over her head. One evening, Carly called me frantic. "I need you to come with me to the court hearing," she said, her voice shaking. "I can't do this alone." My heart was racing. I had never been involved in anything of this sort, and sitting in court made me nervous. But seeing the fear and desperation in her voice struck a chord within me. "All right," I said, my stomach churning. "I'll be there." The day of the hearing finally arrived and passed, and as we entered the courthouse, we could all feel it. Carly looked pale, and the papers shook in her folder, and she clutched them. "Just take a deep breath," I said, putting my arm around her shoulder. "You're ready for this." In the courtroom was tense silence, but the attorney representing Luke was slick and cocky. At the same time, Carly seemed almost timid. I could see that the odds were in favor of Luke. It depressed my heart. Then, the judge appeared and everyone stood up. Carly's lawyer presented his case at the trial by explaining how Carly had been trying to get a job and was working in her situation. Luke's lawyer immediately asserted that Carly's life would not be steady when she hadn't been working to date, but had been brought up by her parents. "Your Honor," said Luke's lawyer, whose voice seemed silky smooth. "My client certainly does have reasonable concerns about the children's welfare. Miss Johnson has yet to prove that she can provide a stable home for them." Carly's face fell as the attorney continued painting her picture negatively. My anger was rising inside me. How could this guy be so cruel? It had nothing to do with the kids. It was chess. "Your Honor," I blurted out, surprising myself. "I'd like to say something." The judge raised an eyebrow, taken apparently quite by surprise. "Do you have pertinent information to share?" "Yes," I said, speaking steadily. "I am Carly's sister and have been aiding her through this trying period. She's making strides to care for her children and wants to be the best mother she can be." Nodding, the judge allowed me to continue. "Carly has gotten a job and is applying for more. She's working hard to build a stable life for her children, and I feel she's doing everything possible." Luke's lawyer looked at me disapprovingly, but I didn't care. I felt I had to speak up for my sister. "Your Honor," I continued, "I know things are complicated, but Carly loves her children. She's making an effort. I've seen her commitment to getting it right." The judge listened intently, and I could see Carly's expression shift from despair to hope as she tried to absorb what she was hearing. The case continued after I testified. Luke's attorney tried to further discredit Carly. Still, she maintained her grounds, explaining how she worked on getting employment and caring for the children. The judge recessed after some time, and I turned to Carly, who seemed more optimistic than I had seen her in weeks. "Thanks," she said with emotion. "I never thought you would stand up for me." "I'd do it all for you," I told her. "You are my sister, and I want you to succeed. Just keep moving forward." When the hearing reconvened, he made a ruling. He gave Carly joint custody with some stipulations for their residential arrangements. He awarded Luke visitation rights, but there was also a financial obligation. Carly was over the moon, and I was relieved. She had fought for her children, and now she was starting to stand on her own 2 feet. I watched for the next months as Carly thrived. She continued to work, and with Luke's financial support, she moved into a small apartment. The kids were happy, and Carly was finally embracing becoming a mother. One evening, Carly texted me, asking me out to dinner. "I want to celebrate," she wrote. "You've been my most significant support, and the one person who's made me feel like I can do anything." The aroma of the delicacies cooked in her apartment buffeted my nostrils as the kids played in the sitting room. Carly smiled and greeted me warmly, and I could feel the happiness from inside. "Thanks for coming over," she said, embracing me with her arms while saying, "It means a lot to me." As we sat down to eat, I especially felt proud of her. "You've come such a long way," I said, watching her serve the kids. "I am really impressed with everything you've done." "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied earnestly. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." We had dinner and then sat on the couch to discuss what had happened. Out of the corners of our eyes were running kids. For the first time in some time, we began to function as a family again. The tension that seemed to have grown between us started to melt away slowly, with a sense of camaraderie being apparent instead. "I know I lost it long ago," Carly said seriously, "but I want to do better. I want to be the sister you deserve." "I appreciate that," I said, "and I want to be here for you. Just remember, you have to take responsibility for your life. You can't sit around waiting for other people to fix everything for you." She nodded, determination shining brightly in her eyes. "I swear, I'll continue pushing on. I won't let you down the way I have before." A new beginning. As the days went by, our relationship started strengthening further. Carly found strength in the life she had built. I felt proud of what she had achieved. We began spending more time with each other, and our bond stretched out for what felt like so long. Then, one night, while drinking wine in her living room, Carly turned to me, reflecting, and said, "You know, I was thinking about how you fought for me in court. It made me realize how important family is." I nodded, knowing that whatever she would say would be very significant. "Yeah? I want to step back a little and enjoy what I have. I've kept dwelling on the past, and at times, I did not even take time to savor the fruits of the present," she said with a heavy voice. "I want us to be close sisters." I felt the warmth in her heart. I'd love that. We've both had a lot of struggles, and it's time to move on from the past. She smiled at him. She really did, and her face lit up with the brightness of her shining white teeth. "I thought we could have dinner organized with Mom and Dad. It is time for us all to reconnect and move on together." "That's a great idea," I said, feeling hope over my shoulders. "It would be good for everyone." We began by making the dinner arrangements, looking forward to finally mending strained family ties that had been strained for so long. We called our parents, who were surprisingly supportive of the idea. On the day of the dinner, I had to act with such a mix of excitement and apprehension. Would my mother like her changes? Did she appreciate the efforts Carly was putting in? I was geared up to hope for a yes. When everyone finally reached, the atmosphere was awkward, but Carly broke that with charm. She warmly and enthusiastically greeted our parents, and I watched them immediately soften. And thus, we sat down to eat. Compared to what I had expected, it was an easy conversation. Old family memories recall funny stories that make us laugh and provide updates from life. The tension that made our relationship less comfortable dissipated and was steadily replaced with something new. She picked up her glass and stood. "Thanks for coming tonight. I have sometimes made the best choices, but I am committed to improving. I want us to be a family again." I saw my parents nodding. Something caught in my throat. My dad said, "We are proud of you, Carly. It takes a lot of guts to know when change is due, and we stand with you," speaking in a very genuine tone. As nightfall approached, I felt hope arise within my heart. We were starting to move beyond everything that had been pain and struggle, and life seemed to be looking better than ever. Prospects. Every week, our family situation continued to blossom. Carly was thriving in her new job, and the children were cheerful and healthy. I started to realize I was finding more and more time to spend with them, and I loved every minute of it. While sipping tea on the porch one evening, I sat reflecting on everything happening. I was so damn fierce for my independence, and the desire to have a home of my own taught me, among other things, to realize how precious family is. Carly and I came full circle. It felt good to know we were finally on the same page. So, Carly called me one afternoon and her voice bubbled with excitement. "I got promoted," she said. "They want me to take on more responsibility at work, and I can't believe it." "Wow, that's amazing," I replied, pretty excited for her. "I knew you could do it. Thank you for all the support you have given me. You have stood by me even when I didn't deserve it," she said, her voice sincere. "I want to take the kids on a small trip to celebrate, and I would love for you to come with us." I smiled as warmth welled within my heart. "I would love to. Where are we going?" "Just a weekend getaway to the beach," she said with something like joy. "I think it'll be a great way to bond as a family." "Oh, that sounds perfect. Let's plan it out, shall we?" I replied, excitement welling up inside me. Days passed and we planned our trip, which would be full of excitement for a variety of entertaining activities along the beach. I wanted to spend more quality time with my sister and her kids to create a new memory that would only draw us closer to each other. Weekend beach getaway. On the day of our beach trip, there was excitement in the air. We packed our car with coolers, beach toys, and snacks because the weather promised a fun weekend. The kids were full of energy, and Carly's excitement was contagious. The ride to the beach was marked by laughter and singing. We played games, sang along to the radio, and even shared stories of our childhood. It was so refreshing to reconnect in ways I hadn't thought possible. As we reached the shore, I was all breathless with the view of the ocean. Waves were pounding against the beach, and the thick, salty aroma filled our lungs. The kids shrieked excitedly as they ran towards the water, and I shared a look with Carly, grinning intensely. "Let's set up our spot," Carly said with an excitable smile. We found our perfect spot on the sand, laid out the towels and umbrellas, and the kids did not waste time jumping into the water. Carly and I settled into our beach chairs and enjoyed the sun's warmth. We spent the day playing at the shore, making sand castles and splashing in waves. The children giggled and played. Their laughter was ringing throughout the air. I could see then how much Carly had changed. She was so present with her children, which filled my heart with happiness. As the sun set later that evening, we were all gathered by the beach, roasting marshmallows and s'mores on a bonfire. Before me, the sky was colored into a lovely orange-pink painting, and I could feel my soul being filled with peace. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Carly said, her eyes twinkling in the light of the fire. "I'm so grateful for this moment." "Me too," I replied, feeling a warmth in my heart. "I never thought we'd ever get to this point, but I am so glad we did." The kids gathered around, their faces glowing excitedly as they toasted marshmallows. We'd shared stories and laughter, mostly forged with love. This'll be a lifelong memory. A funny thing about life was that it would surprise you at times. Despite all the flogging and torment, I had my sister back. We had faced the storm and were stronger from going through it together. I went home, unprepared to emerge from that place in the darkness. As Sunday ended, I found it hard to leave for the beach. But as we started packing our bags, I couldn't help but smile at all the memories we made and the laughter, bonding, and joy. It's all worth it. Coming home, the mood was full of satisfaction, with the children all tiring and beaming with smiles. Carly and I exchanged a quiet look. We had traveled a long way. As I pulled into my driveway, I felt a rush of gratitude for the life I built. Struggle and conflict led me to this moment, this place of connection and love. Whatever the challenges ahead, I knew I would face them head-on, surrounded by the family I fought to protect. Carly turned to me, smiling warmly. "Thanks for everything. This trip meant the world to me." My face smiled again, and my heart swelled with love. "I'm so proud of you, Carly. You have come such a long way, and I am excited for the other places life will take you." I felt hope for the future as we hugged ourselves goodbye. We were rebuilding our relationship, and I was sure we could face anything and everything together. Reflections. Weeks began turning into months, leaving me reminiscing over everything that had happened. How life throws you curveballs is impressive, but how you react genuinely matters. I learned so much. Setting boundaries, why you need to stand up for yourself, and, at the end of the day, forgiveness. She thrived in the workplace, and I continually cheered her on. We became sisters in every respect, sharing some experiences and the good and bad of life as sisters. The kids got to know me better, and I loved spending time with them, developing an authentic bond that emitted love. One afternoon, I was sitting in my backyard under the sun when Carly texted me. "Can we talk?" it read. I felt a stirring sense of anticipation. "Of course, when?" I replied to her via text message. She replied within seconds. "Now? I have something important to share." Soon she arrived, and a minor fray of joy mixed with some worry crossed her face so that when she walked into my yard and started to gaze around, I could find a gleaming spark in those sparkling eyes. "What's up?" asked me, my heart beating fast with curiosity. "I got a promotion!" exclaimed she, unable to speak within her boundaries. "I simply cannot believe it. I am going to be able to lead a team. You know, I thought that would only be a sure thing for guys and they would never consider me to take the responsibility." I leaped up, made my way to her chair, and gave her a hug. "Carly, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you." Well, I really owe it to you, she said, looking me straight in the eye when she pulled back. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Well, of course I did, I said. You've always had it in you. I'm just glad you're starting to see it too. As we scooped ice cream to celebrate her latest success with its sweet, cold goodness, I realized how much we had changed. The bond that created this strength had been built in trials and triumphs. Conclusion. We'd both had our share of struggle, but we'd faced it. I had fought for my independence and learned in the fray that family is more important than I'd imagined. Carly had fought for her children and emerged harder, more rigid, and stronger than I had ever imagined. Now, sitting in my backyard, watching the setting sun after all these struggles, I couldn't help but rejoice in the sense of contentment. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had brought me to this moment filled with love, hope, and a bright future. With all these things in my heart, I knew that no matter what was coming my way, I was prepared to face it head-on, with my sister and all her strength by my side, taking on whatever life throws our way.